Good afternoon, my friends. I want to touch on something that is very important for some of us in our journey of recovery. That a couple things. You cannot heal a wound that you cannot admit is there. And ultimately, truth is the highest vibration, and the essence of healing is being in touch with the truth and being seen for who you truly are and met as you truly are. Those are the most healing things, and just some general principles around healing that are really important, and that's why I'm making this video. I've come across a couple of people in my journey and in my life who have told me, people who didn't know my story very well, they knew some of it, but not all of it, and told me that healing doesn't have to be hard. And I was kind of describing how difficult my journey was and how much suffering was involved in it. And that was the response I get. Well, it doesn't have to be if you don't believe it is. If you don't believe it's hard, it's not hard. And for some people, that's true. But the other truth I really want to highlight here, and I think this is especially helpful for those of us who are in rewiring our brains and recovering from limbic impairment, because the neuroplasticity community is highly focus on the positive, but to the point of toxic positivity often as well, where it actually gets in the way. Again, if you can't admit a wound is there, you won't be able to heal it. If there's, a bleeding wound on your knee, but you are just like, no, there's nothing there, then you can't treat it properly, right? And it's not going to heal in the correct way. Or if you break a bone and you won't admit, I actually literally have a crooked finger because my parents didn't believe me when I broke a bone when I was little, and so I've had a crooked finger for my whole life. So that's the kind of the general idea behind this. And I really want to emphasize this truth that while comparison is not helpful, there is an objective reality that some people's lives and stories are more difficult and painful than others. Right? If someone was raised in a loving home where their emotional needs and their physical needs were always met, they were, emotionally attuned to, given an environment where they could be themselves, it was safe to be, they were given what they needed to develop and become who they were, taught how life works, taught how the world works, versus someone who grew up in an abusive or neglectful home. Those people had very different lives. One is objectively much more difficult and painful, and the person who has to heal from that and teach themselves how to operate in the world and also heal their inner world at the same time is going to go through a lot more suffering and a lot more struggle, and their journey is going to be much more difficult. This isn't about good or bad. It's not better or worse to suffer more or less. It doesn't really matter. What matters is just that we're being honest you're being honest with yourself about your own journey. And that's really the biggest thing too, is I know for myself, and I know I'm not alone in this, my entire life, I didn't have, my limbic impairment started when I was very little, and I didn't ever have executive function fully developed. So I was told that I was really whiny or just not intelligent. In reality, I couldn't access my executive function or prefrontal cortex. And so I was just told, well, you're just too whiny, and you're just not, you ask for too much help, and you're just a whiny baby. And I was teased for it by my whole family, my whole life. It was this identity. And really the reality is I didn't have enough brain function to do all the things that I was being expected to do, and no one was willing to help me or teach me. They were just like, there's something wrong with you. And that's been incredibly difficult. That's just one small part of my journey. But that's the kind of thing where, as you're going through your journey, for you to meet yourself where you are, if you've had people tell you, it doesn't have to be hard, if you just believe that it can be, easy, or that healing doesn't have to be difficult, that's not true. Healing is really hard. Rewiring your brain is really freaking hard, man. It's just rough. Like, I don't care who you are or what level, it's hard, period. But it's a lot, and this is different than believing it's hard and becoming a victim to that mindset, which a lot of people do that as well. And that's not what I'm talking about here. But you can only have compassion for yourself and be able to accept where you are. Like, literally, I'm in a tree, I'm on the ground, I'm here at this point, and in order to move forward, I need to accept that this is what I'm dealing with. This is the reality of what I'm working with. We cannot move forward if we are not admitting the reality of where we are. So for you, the takeaway, if you resonate with this, or you've been, in a sense, unintentionally gaslit into believing that you are creating your own suffering, and suffering is just created in the mind, and all these kind of spiritual sayings people say, that's bullshit. Suffering is very real, and you didn't make that up. You didn't neglect yourself as a child. You weren't supposed to be your own parent. You didn't abuse yourself when the way your family did, or whatever you've been through. You didn't do that to yourself. And that creates very real suffering inside the human person. You can never feel safe if you are not met. So, and that is incredibly painful. So just want you to know that wherever you are in your journey is valid, and you don't have to believe kind of all of these sayings and cliches. They're not objectively true. They're not grounded in reality. Everyone is different. So accept that wherever you are, whether you're on the lighter or heavier side of difficulty in your own journey. I think it's really important that we admit this, because I just see a lot of toxic positivity of like, oh, well, we shouldn't compare. And no, but objectively, there's differences. This makes my blood boil if you can't tell. And I just want to, again, Mama Bear out there, protect you guys from all of this stuff. If that's you, you are valid, your experience is valid, and you are the only person who knows what it's like to be you, to experience the sensations you feel, the emotions you feel, the difficulty and whatever it is that you've been through and that you go through each day. No one else could possibly know that. They're not inside of your skin, inside of your brain and nervous system. They have no idea what they're talking about. So that's all my offering is, to liberate yourself from other people's scripts and all these cliches, and be able to meet yourself where you are, and have compassion for the suffering you have gone through, or the things that you are dealing with. That is part of healing, and it's a very important part of healing. So whenever you're ready to admit that to yourself, or ready to face that, know that that is positivity. Being honest about how strong you are to have come through what you've come through is the most positive thing you can do. Honor yourself and whatever your experience truly is. I love you guys.